guys, welcome back to Room 237 as I continue my marathon of Italian horror and Giallo films. And for this video I have yet another Giallo, this time from 1972, and it's another film by Aldo Leto, which is the third film of his that I'm going to be reviewing, the second Giallo. And it's the third out of 4 films from this Giallo collection box set that I have. Great collection. I found it between 10 and 20 bucks. Case the Bloody Iris, I thought was great. Short Night of Glass Dolls, I was completely blown away by. And this one I really enjoyed. And it's Aldo Leto's Who Saw Her Die. Of course, like the other ones, I just put the insert in it to get the original artwork. This one has a very different premise. I mean, even though we do get a string of characters that die, there is one particular murder that carries everything through, and that's what's very different. I sort of liken the plot to kind of like The Vanishing, which if you saw my review for that, you know I'm a huge fan of that film. I love The Vanishing, where the setup for this is there's a killer going around, seemingly to be a woman in all black gloves, black veil, killing young girls who also have red hair. And we get a death in the beginning of the film where the young girl is buried in snow, and then we get the main story. And once the young girl is killed, the father sort of becomes a frontier, a detective, sort of like vigilante, and becomes obsessed with figuring out who's responsible. And I really enjoyed it. It definitely has a different feel to it. It's definitely, especially compared to the other Giallo films in this collection, it has more of a bleak, somber feel to it. I know Aldo Leto said he didn't want as much blood and gore in this film. There's some blood, but not a lot. He was going for more of an aura of unease and more atmosphere, suspense, which this definitely has. And I think that goes well with that kind of plot, with a loved one, in this case a father, obsessing over who's responsible for the murder of his child. And the cast, the father in this case is a guy named Franco, played by Paul Lazenby, who was once a Bond, very short-lived, but he was. The mother is played by Anita Strindberg, and the girl is played by Nicoletta Elmi, who I think she was in A Bay of Blood, she was in Barren Blood, she was in Deep Red, she was in Demons. So, been in a few Giallo and horror films. Death in Venice, which I have not seen yet. And I really commend her for her performance. Part of that is also the writers, but what makes this movie all the more tragic is how sweet and innocent this girl is, and the relationship she has with Franco. Some peripheral characters, we have Adolfo Celli, who plays how did they pronounce that name? Serafian, if I pronounced that correctly. One of my last reviews was Eye in the Labyrinth. He's great at, kind of looks like George C. Scott, but he's great at playing sleazebags. Who was the one guy? Bonaluti? No, I think he was someone else. I think his friend was Philip and Peter Chattel. I'm not sure, but so you get a decent cast. Everyone does a good job. Only they didn't use Paul Lazenby's voice for the dubbing, which has been a complaint that's followed this film, both initially and retroactively. The music was actually done by Ennio Morricone. So you can't go wrong there. But a lot of the score is done with this echoey children's choir that really sets a creepy atmosphere, especially when the children are killed. It really opens the scenes up. I'm not quite sure. Oh, sculptor. That's what I thought he was. So Franco's a sculptor. Takes place in Venice, which the Donald Sutherland film Don't Look Now, I think, also takes place in Venice. But whether it does or doesn't, the plot was compared to this film, or this film was compared to that, even though it came out the following year. I think by the time Americans saw this, that film was already out. But yeah, I thought it said right here that it was compared. Oh, it was also distributed under the title of The Child. But anyway, there's some cool stuff in this. Like, this is one of the first Giallo I noticed the setting up of a red herring solely built on the audience's anxieties and expectations, and even before the murder happens, because I want to say Philip was his friend, but there's this guy that's a close friend of Franco. He comes over to tell him something, and the daughter Roberta is looking at a slideshow of her mother, played by Strindberg. And he walks in and he just puts out these vibes of just sexual deviant. Like, he looks at her and he's just... He doesn't make a noise, but we can all hear it in our heads. And he kind of looks over at her and she says, am I beautiful like my mother when I smile? And he's like, you're beautiful even if you don't smile. Then he starts like stroking her hair. So it's building up our anxieties already, especially if we know the plot. We know she's gonna die. It's setting up a red herring already. But throughout the rest of the film, he's not like that. Like, he's pretty much on the straight and narrow. He helps Franco get and relay information. So that really is a scene that's put there just to help establish a red herring. Some of the shots of this film, like some of Leto's camera work, like there's a great shot of this person in this swarm of pigeons that I think is feeding the pigeons, and just the way it's shot and the sound design of it almost looks like a blizzard, like a person standing in a blizzard. Also, there's a part where Franco is walking through this abandoned building, and it's almost like Leto is using the frame of the architecture to frame the scene. I thought that scene looks excellent. There's another character who gets killed where we see the killer pick up a weapon. I thought it was a letter opener at first, but then I saw the handles and I thought maybe it's a pair of scissors. But the camera follows the hand, like, pick it up and come towards the guy. So the camera like follows until the guy gets stabbed. As Franco starts diving and getting into this mystery, he uncovers there's some sort of, I don't want to say secret society or organization, but there's several members of the community who are up to no good. They do have something sinister going on, and the killer is involved. And so it seems like more than one person knows about this. So the killer starts targeting them as well. One of which is, the guy that we follow the knife with. It's a guy that has a thing for birds. he's sort of obsessed with the case of the girl in the beginning, or this case in France, and he keeps the answer to it in his safe. But when he's about to reveal it, that's when he gets killed. There's this other woman named Ginevra. When she tells Franco, I have information about your daughter's murder, she gets killed. Which, she gets killed in a movie theater, strangled, full of people. And just as the killer undoes like the scarf or whatever and walks away, that's when Franco sits down, and that's when everyone notices there's a dead body. But Franco also goes to talk to the family of the girl from the beginning, because he notices it was their daughter, sweet redhead, died in similar circumstances. So he thinks they were connected. Yeah, but I really like the way it's shot. I mean, it's definitely a different tone, definitely more somber and bleak. There's a great body reveal. There's this one character who, there's this door that starts to open, and when it opens, the body is pinned to the door, which just adds more of a layer of horror to it. I mean, Halloween has done it, Friday 13th has done it. It's always one of my favorite dead body reveals. I will say the sort of secret society, I didn't really see coming. I didn't think that was going to be the answer, but I guess I'll get into spoilers now. I've already talked about so much. But if you like movies like The Vanishing, loved one becoming obsessed with solving the murder or the disappearance of someone they love, I think you'll like this Giallo. It definitely follows the tropes throughout. Also, we get the POV of the killer, which when it has that veil in front of it, I think that's a nice touch. It does kind of prevent fake outs with POV. Plus it adds just another layer of sinister over it. So I thought that was a nice touch. The children's choir being used for the the score, especially the more scarier moments or more suspenseful moments, really helps. There's some crazy frenetic editing. When one scene when Strindberg is being chased, I thought that was some nice editing. But one of the things that really makes this movie work, and what really causes the most dread for the first act, is the relationship between Franco and Roberta. I mean, this young actress did a wonderful job. She wasn't written as or play Roberta as this bratty, annoying kid. She's a very sweet young girl, almost angelic. Her and Franco have a wonderful father-daughter bond. And even when she's playing with the kids outside and they all run off and she's leaning against a tree, and we get the POV of the killer walking up to her, and she just kind of looks up, not scared or frightened, but I guess more inquisitive, like the way a dog would cock its head at you. And then we hear her scream off camera because Franco's having an affair with a woman. He keeps cutting back and forth between him having sex and her being approached. And another very powerful scene is, he's a sculptor. He has all his work, I think, down in his basement. He's smashing it. He's blaming himself, saying it's his fault. And one thing that adds, it's done very well, but it does add some levity, is when Strindberg says, it's also my fault. I didn't accompany her on this trip. I stayed back wherever I was. We need to work together. Real life sucks. I mean, I think 80%, I could be wrong on that, but I think 80% of marriages end in divorce after a child is murdered. That's terrible. So, it does add some levity that they're still trying to work together and be there for each other. But, I know I've said this a lot, but different Giallo, I like it. It's not just another Argento ripoff. I do like stories where it's like a loved one trying to solve what happens. And I thought this one was shot very well. It's got great atmosphere and tone. It utilizes its set of Venice very well. Morricone's score, especially with the children chanting, does add more of a haunting layer to it. So, yeah, I can definitely recommend it. As far as Aldo Leto goes, I do like it more than Night Train Murders. I don't know if I like it as much as Short Night of Glass Dolls. That one really impressed me. But I still enjoyed this very much. So, get into spoilers now. So, Adolfo Celli is, I think he's Franco's manager of some sort. But that great scene where Franco walks into the abandoned warehouse, the camera then pans up to this upper level where Celli is. He's the one that's named Serafian or whatever. He shoots at him, at Franco. And then there's this young kid on crutches that saves Franco. And he's able to give Franco this clue, which is this old projector reel, which has Serafian, the guy with the birds, and a couple other people, this community, this little organization, all sexually degrading, humiliating, and taking turns with that girl, Ginevra, who was killed in the movie theater, who is this kid's mother. So yeah, he's watching this film of all these people kind of sexually degrade his mother. But there's one guy in this film who's back too. And he's the only one so far that's not spoken for. Now, of course, us in the audience, I think that's also meant for us to put the puzzle together ourselves. But there is one other character I haven't talked about yet. And that is, what's his name? Father James? Father James, played by Alessandro Haber. He's a lot like the father in Don't Torture a Duckling, in that he's kind of coaching boys playing soccer. Here it's basketball. But, he's in that video with the one that the son found. He's the one that's back too. And Father James is exposed in front of everyone. They're able to catch the killer when they rip the veil off. It's Father James, who gets set on fire, falls out a window, and I did think this was kind of repetitive. It shows him falling from a bunch of different angles. His motive was, because I can't remember which killing it was, or if there was more than one, this golden locket with this red-headed woman was inside of it. Find out that was his mother. And she was a whore. So he killed young red-headed girls so they wouldn't grow up to be a whore like his mother. Which is kind of a similar motive to Don't Torture a Duckling. Spoilers for that if you haven't seen that already. Where the priest killed these young boys to preserve their innocence. But we do get a bit of an epilogue at the end of this. Normally, solve who the killer is, either cut to end credits or it shows the main characters going off to live their lives, end credits. Here it shows someone coming out saying Father James was an imposter, which it showed him being a trusted member of the community, known to all these kids as he coached basketball and whatever. Not that he impostered a real Father James, just that he wasn't a real priest. He wasn't a man of the cloth. He was a wolf in sheep's clothing. Which, that can be done for a few reasons. It could be sort of like a metaphor for worshiping false idols and false prophets, kind of not knowing who we put our trust and faith into. But it could also be to sort of cover themselves, to not get kind of the flack that Don't Torture a Duckling got. Because when that came out, a lot of people got pissed that a priest was killing children. It could have been either one of those two things, I think, as to why they did that. But, I mean, I didn't find too much that I could have talked about with this one. I did watch this last night. I haven't had a chance to make a video of it yet, so I'm kind of working with memory, really. But I still thought this was a solid Giallo. It's one where the concept and the tone definitely kept me guessing. But there's a lot of other things I liked. Like, this was the first time I noticed them planting a red herring as an introduction scene with sort of that pedophile type guy, but then he doesn't act like that for the rest of the movie. It's just, this is a movie that really builds off the expectations of the audience, and I commend it for that. But so yeah, this may not be one of my better reviews, but that is Aldo Leto's 1972 Giallo, Who Saw Her Die. Stay tuned for more Italian horror films and Giallo films. Thank you for watching.